Hello, beautiful writers out there. Another wonderful opportunity today to be creative. Speaking of being creative, I thought, why not share how I come up with ideas and more importantly, how I develop ideas and how I decide whether to stick with an idea or not and how to go through with it. Not so much to be, taken as a guideline to anything, more so that hopefully it inspires yourself, or there might even be similarities to your process. At the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is that you get your thoughts and what you want to say down on the page. How you do it is just totally up to you. Let's have an example, shall we? Then it's not as theoretical, and I think it's easier for you guys to understand what my process is like and what are the questions that I ask myself when, playing around with an idea. Let's do this, shall we? Ideas, right? I have no clue where my ideas come from. It's happened that they have come from a painting I have been looking at for, a couple of minutes, and then boom, all of a sudden it hits me. There might be, music playing when I'm in the car, and all of a sudden I get this flash of ideas. Or there might even be a character that somehow spoke to me, or parts of this character, or there might even be someone telling me a story which I felt really attached to, or they might come from something, and that this happens, I think, very often in the process, at least, of developing an idea, when you get the personal connection happening. But sometimes there is I feel the need to say something, and this is when I feel, okay, there is something that wants to come out, and I try to give it a shape. When this is the case, I often just sit down and write, and it often starts with prose, or some lyrics even, or some spoken word type of things, that this which gets me going, and this is all I need to determine what shape this idea will take on. Maybe it's a story, maybe it's a screenplay, but maybe not. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it wants to be something else. And I just, give myself the freedom to explore what this idea wants to be. Okay, so this is mainly how I come up with ideas. It also happens that I wake up in the morning and I had a very interesting dream, and there is, this one scene or this one element from the dream that really haunts me, and I dig deeper to find out what really connects me to that. And again, then I often find out that, okay, there's something I want to say with it, and then roll with it. Or the last for me would be, I have a whole scene in my head. And this is exactly what I'm going to share with you now. The story goes like this. You have a single father who takes his 8-year-old daughter to school every day by bus. So they ride a public transport bus each day and every day to school. This day is different. Of course it is. Like I said, you only have a story when something goes south. So here it goes south. There is someone else on the bus threatening to blow the whole bus up. So there is a terrorist with a bomb on the bus. The father, very afraid of that his daughter and everyone else might get hurt, he talks to the guy threatening to blow up the bus. He even manages to be very brave about it and to talk him out of blowing up the bus, and he talks him into taking him as a hostage. This terrorist agrees to doing so, and so the bus stops, they get out of the bus, and in an, instant of a second, this father decides something that will change his life forever. He just decides on the fly, on the spot right there, to push the terrorist in front of a car that's driving by. He does so. The terrorist, stumbles in front of the car hits the terrorist dies. No one else gets harmed. Okay, so there you have it. That is something that I, find interesting enough to get me going. So now, how do I go about from just that? What comes after this? This particular setup is very intriguing to me because I think that there is a lot of great questions in there. That's always something that gets me going. And there's also something that is relevant in terms of society, especially because it has, a sort of a zeitgeisty element to it that I find very intriguing, because since we all, have to deal with terrorist attack even more these days, I find it very interesting to ask myself, and therefore everyone else who will read or, see this, how do we deal with, these threats, and how do we act in these intense and emotionally draining situations? There's a guy, being pushed to the edge, and he makes a decision, and this decision is definitely it's quite weighing on him and also on society. Okay, so next I look for a personal connection in all of that, because that will be my motor of things. This will be my motivation throughout the whole script. I want to say something, and I can only say something if I feel I'm somewhat connected to the whole issue and I have something to say about it. So then I think, okay, what's there to say? And the basic question for me then, based on this example, is it okay? I mean, not only would I have reacted the same way, but it's very intriguing for me to think that I probably would have done that. And from, the perspective of the father, he might have, done the right thing, because he saved his daughter, first and foremost, but he also saved everyone else on the bus. So that's not particularly wrong. But also, society may then come in and treat it as, a very intense issue. Like society will probably, even the law, when, police comes in and they arrest him and all of this goes down, there will be trials in all of this. And this is very interesting to, sort of discuss on a social level. Like, what is society about these days? What is my take on the whole thing? And sort of the discussion that I feel already rising within me is an indication for me to get writing. Because there is a theme in there somewhere, and I just need to dig it out. And that's what I'm going to do next. I play with the idea. So after my personal connection to the whole thing, which is also that I'm, a father and also a father to a daughter, so I can relate what it means to want to save your kid. Once I got this down, I have the personal connection, that's all I need. Then I start to look for the theme. And the theme in all of that is very much based on the discussion I want to happen later on in the screenplay or the novel or whatever I'm writing. It will almost always be about, one central question. And this central question will be based around the inciting incident. The inciting incident will raise this question. And throughout the course of the movie, I will then discuss this question. And at the very end, I will try to come up with an answer to this question. Or there will be another question, based on the initial question. So what I'm trying to say is I don't really feel the need to answer this question. I only want a discussion happening. So different takes on the one thing. And this is how I set up the whole plot and the whole and the whole ensemble of characters. I look for, when I look for the antagonist of things. So obviously the antagonist of things could be the law coming in, like the authorities. Authorities come in, they arrest him, they, separate them from his daughter, they give him a very hard time, they prosecute him, whatever comes after that. So he's in deep trouble, definitely because he killed someone. That's a fact. So he will be knee deep in shit. And this is what I want. I want him really struggling, and I want him, struggling with his part in society. I want him struggling with his decision. I want him struggling with his relationship to his daughter. I want probably even the daughter doubting her father at one point or another. All of this goes into consideration when I build up the plot. And you can already tell, there's a lot of obstacles happening there. There's a lot of, beats that I can hit throughout the course of the whole thing. And when I feel I have, this going for me, I can tell that I want to stick to this story. I want to explore this story a little more because there's so much in it. And that, gets the fire going inside of me. And this is when I roll with it. Okay, so next I found the antagonist. The antagonist might, very well be the mother of the daughter and former wife or whatever, or girlfriend, whatever it may be. But I find it more interesting if the antagonist would not be the authorities, more the let it be her mother. And his former wife or whatever. This way the whole conflict gets more personal. And I think that the more personal you can make a problem, the deeper it cuts when it comes to storytelling and conveying emotions, because that's when we feel the most drawn to something. When it's authorities and it's a fight against a giant corporation or a law or whatever, police, that's just too abstract. That's way too abstract. We want something that we can relate to, and we can only relate to stuff that's really personal to us. And same is with protagonists. It needs to be very personal. Okay, so now I have the antagonist down. I look at the ensemble and bring in, bits and pieces and sort of, I call them voices, different voices to this one issue. So there might as well be, someone like a religious guy who comes in when he's in jail, and he visits him in jail, and he might be an atheist, but he sort of, they start talking, and this religious person sheds some light on how he sees what has happened, and how, this decision that this man made by pushing him in front of the car, how he thinks of it, based on his religious views. And there will be, family members. There will be even parents of his that, give him a hard time. There might be his ex-wife. There might be his daughter, like I said. And all of these different viewpoints on this one thing will make my theme even more strong, and it will create the subplots of the whole thing. And I can also imagine a love story happening within all this, maybe even to make it more strong. Someone is coming in, maybe a lawyer or whatever, and she has a very different view on the whole thing, but she's also trying to defend him. So that is an indication that there might also be, you know, some sort of a love story happening, which does not need to be in there, but it's probably going to happen. And this is sort of, you know, how I roll with it. So I play around with different ideas, with different questions, with different takes on, you know, this one issue, different word views, and I throw in there, and I thought of, you know, play around until I feel that I have a solid basis from where I can, you know, explore the story even more. Then the most important aspect of it all needs to be considered, and this often takes me a hell of a lot of time to get right, and this is the ending. I need to know the ending before I dive into writing. I try out different endings and see how it affects what I have set up before. And I usually do this in an outline. I start, you know, outlining it once I have, you know, the antagonist and I have the obstacles. I have the main conflict. And of course, you know, it all started with the inciting incident. I have all this down, and I can write my beats throughout the whole thing down. I have my, you know, act breaks, I have my midpoint and all of this. Then, you know, I worry about the ending, and the ending is a tough one. I kind of, you know, first I try to decide whether I want it to be an open ending or I want it to be, you know, a happy ending, whatever it's going to be. And then I spend, you know, hours and hours just, you know, writing down different versions of an ending that I can imagine based on my outline that I have so far. Once I got the ending down and I feel very comfortable with it, which does not mean that it doesn't change, it can always change, but I feel comfortable enough knowing my ending that I then sit down and write the whole thing. So, yeah, I really do hope this inspires you. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe and all this good stuff. See you in the next video, and you know, right on, guys.